There's a kind of intelligence no test measures and almost nobody names, and the people who have it usually assume they're ordinary. Here are 10 signs it's you. You've probably been called quiet your whole life. Maybe deep, maybe too much in your head. Teachers didn't always know what to do with you. Report cards used words like capable, but never quite brilliant. And yet, in rooms full of louder people, you notice things they don't. You catch the shift in someone's voice before they realize their own mood changed. You feel the tension in a meeting 3 sentences before it breaks open. You remember the small detail everyone else forgot. You just don't announce it. That's the thing about this kind of mind. It doesn't perform. It observes. Psychologists have circled this trait for decades under different names: reflective cognition, hyperceptual sensitivity, integrative thinking, but the culture never gave it a clean label. So most people who have it walk through life quietly assuming they're just average, with a lot of thoughts. They're not. Research on intelligence consistently finds that the loudest, fastest, most confident thinkers are rarely the deepest ones. The rarest minds tend to be the ones that stay quiet in the room and loud on the inside. And the school system, unfortunately, is built to reward the first kind and overlook the second. So if the world has never quite known where to put you, this video might explain why. Here are 10 signs you have quiet intelligence, the kind almost nobody names, and even fewer possess. Sign 1. You process before you speak. In conversations, there's often a small delay between a question landing and your answer arriving, and people sometimes mistake that pause for slowness. It isn't. Researchers who study reflective cognition, the deliberate, careful mode of thinking William James first described, find that people who pause before answering are often running multiple interpretations of the question in parallel. Your brain is not stalling. It's checking the sentence against everything you already know, discarding the sloppy answers, and only releasing the one that actually holds up. From the outside, it looks hesitant. From the inside, it's a filter that most people don't have. Quick answers feel confident, but confidence and accuracy are two different things, and your mind has quietly chosen the second. And the next sign is one you probably don't even realize you're doing. Sign 2, you notice the emotional temperature of a room the moment you walk in. Before anyone says a word, you already know who's tense, who's performing, who's genuinely fine. Psychologists call this thin slicing, the mind's ability to read complex social information from tiny cues in a fraction of a second. Most people rely on words. You read posture, breath, the millisecond a smile arrives late. What looks like introversion is often something quieter and rarer, a nervous system tuned to signals other people miss. You didn't train for this. You just spent years actually paying attention while everyone else was rehearsing what to say next. And this next one is where quiet intelligence starts to look almost strange to outsiders. Sign 3, you can hold 2 opposing ideas in your head without needing to pick a side. Most minds get uncomfortable in contradiction and race toward a verdict because the brain hates open loops. Yours doesn't. This is what researchers call cognitive flexibility, the ability to keep a thought suspended long enough to examine it from more than one angle. From the outside, it can look like indecision. It's actually the opposite. You're refusing to collapse a complex idea into a small one just to feel certain. You'd rather sit inside a real question than escape into a fake answer. And that refusal, that willingness to stay in the uncomfortable middle, is the beginning of real thinking. Sign 4, you ask questions that make people go quiet. Not dramatic questions, just the ones nobody thought to ask. In a meeting, a class, a family conversation, your question lands and the room slows down because you skipped the obvious layer and went to the one underneath. This is what curiosity researchers describe as depth-oriented questioning, the tendency to probe assumptions instead of details. Most people ask what. You ask why that, and why now. It's disarming because it forces others to think for real, and that's why quiet minds often become the unofficial center of gravity in any group. You're not trying to be profound, you just find the surface genuinely boring. Wait until you see what sign 6 does to your relationships. Sign 5, you learn things nobody asked you to learn. Somewhere in your history there's an oddly specific interest, the psychology of memory, the structure of language, the way bridges hold up weight, the history of a war nobody talks about, that you pursued for no external reward. No grade, no promotion, no audience. Psychologists call this intrinsic curiosity, and it's one of the most reliable markers of genuine intelligence in the research literature. Extrinsically motivated people learn what's tested. Intrinsically curious minds learn what's true. That gap, compounded over years, is how ordinary-looking people quietly become extraordinary. Not because they were pushed, but because something inside them refused to stop asking. Sign 6, you feel other people's emotions more accurately than they do. Not just that you're sensitive. You can often name what someone is feeling before they can. A friend says they're fine and you already know it's grief with a layer of guilt on top. A colleague laughs a little too hard and you register the exhaustion underneath it. This is high effective empathy paired with cognitive empathy. And the combination is genuinely uncommon. Most people have one or the other. You have both, which is why people confide in you within minutes of meeting you, and why you sometimes go home from social events feeling like you carried something invisible. That's not fragility, that's bandwidth. And the next sign is the one people misread the most. Sign 7. You get uncomfortable when things are too simple. When someone hands you a neat explanation for a messy situation, he's just like that, she's just jealous. The world just works that way. Something in you resists. Not because you want to be difficult, but because your mind knows real causes are almost always layered. Researchers studying integrative complexity find that this discomfort with oversimplification is one of the strongest markers of high-level thinking. Simple stories comfort most people. They irritate you, and that irritation quietly is your intelligence refusing to be lied to, even when the lie is polite and even when everyone else has already accepted it. Sign 8. You're strangely good at predicting how situations will unfold. Not in a mystical way. You just tend to see the second and third move before it happens. You know which friendship is about to fracture, which project is going to fail, which new hire is going to change the culture. Sometimes you say it out loud and nobody listens, and then 6 months later, exactly the thing you saw happens. This is pattern recognition running in the background, what cognitive scientists sometimes call implicit learning. The brain absorbs statistical regularities from experience without you consciously studying them. You didn't try to become perceptive. You just paid attention for years, and your mind did the math quietly. And the next sign is where quiet intelligence starts to feel almost lonely. Sign 9. You often feel out of sync with people who are considered impressive. You watch someone hold a room, dominate a conversation, radiate confidence, and something in you notices what's missing. The nuance they skipped, the person they interrupted, the idea that wasn't quite as sharp as their delivery. You don't feel superior. You just feel a strange, quiet mismatch, because your standard for smart isn't performance, it's precision. Psychologists call this evaluative depth, and it's part of why quietly intelligent people rarely feel at home in status-driven environments. You're not shy in those rooms. You're just measuring by a different ruler, and once you've seen the difference between polish and substance, you can't unsee it. And the last sign is the one that ties everything together. Sign 10. You routinely underestimate yourself. This is the signature move of quiet intelligence, and it's the reason so many people who have it never realize they do. The Dunning-Kruger effect describes how the least competent tend to overestimate themselves, but its lesser-known second half is just as important. The most competent tend to assume everyone else can see what they see. So you think your observations are obvious. You think your questions are basic. You think the pattern you spotted must have been noticed by everyone. It wasn't. The people around you have been quietly relying on your read of the world for years, asking you what you thought, checking your reaction, waiting to see how you'd handle it, and you assumed you were the ordinary one in the room. That, in one sentence, is the whole trap. The rarest intelligence is the kind that doesn't feel rare from the inside, because it doesn't announce itself, doesn't seek applause, doesn't need to win the sentence. It just watches, connects, and quietly gets things right. What's interesting is how consistently these 10 traits get misread, as shyness, as slowness, as being too sensitive, as overthinking, as being difficult, as being aloof. Every single sign of quiet intelligence has a cheaper, more dismissive label the world tends to reach for first. And that mislabeling is exactly why people with this kind of mind grow up assuming they're average. They spend years being told to speak up more, decide faster, care less, simplify their thoughts, stop taking things so personally. So they learn to hide the very traits that make them rare. And they walk into adulthood carrying a strange, quiet grief for a version of themselves that never got permission to exist out loud. But nothing about you was ever the problem. The room was just too small for the way you think. If any of this landed a little too accurately, that recognition itself is data. The fact that you're still here, thinking about which sign felt most like you, is already sign 1, 3, and 7 doing their quiet work in real time. You don't have to prove anything with this. You don't have to suddenly become louder or start correcting people or wear your intelligence like a badge. Quiet intelligence has never needed a costume. It just needs to stop apologizing for the way it naturally moves through the world. Tell me in the comments which one hit hardest. I read every reply, and the patterns in what people say are honestly some of the most interesting research I get all week. If more than one sign felt like you, tell me which combination, because that's usually where the most fascinating minds live. If this resonated, the next video you'll want is the one on the hidden habits of deep thinkers. It's the natural companion to this one, and it goes even further into how minds like yours actually work when nobody's watching. And if you'd like more of this, one hidden pattern of the mind, decoded carefully every week, subscribe and turn on the notification bell, because these are the kinds of ideas that don't tend to surface anywhere else in the algorithm, and I'd rather you not miss them. Quiet intelligence isn't loud, isn't fast, isn't flashy, it just happens to be right more often than the room realizes. And the fact that you never needed anyone to notice, that's the part that makes it rare.